Hi guys, I'm Estella and today I will be giving you a brief introduction to the section of legal reasoning in CLAT examination. Before I delve into the details of the subject, let us look at the pattern of CLAT 2021. In CLAT, there are 150 multiple choice questions which need to be solved within 120 minutes. The entire paper is divided into 5 sections: English, General Knowledge, Maths, Logical Reasoning, and Legal Reasoning. Now let us take a closer look at the Legal Reasoning section. The Legal Reasoning section has 35 to 40 questions in total. This section aims to test your understanding of the fundamental laws and aptitude for research and comprehension skills. To do this, there are 3 types of questions. First, there are the passage-based questions. Second, the problem situation-based question. And third, the legal GK type question. Moving on to the first type of question, that is the passage-based question. These types of questions form the bulk of legal reasoning section. In these type of questions, you are first provided with a passage, which is generally an extract from a legal blog or a newspaper article, followed by 5 to 6 questions which are based on the passage. It is important to note here that the passage-based question in legal reasoning is different from the passage-based question in English section, because in this section, you are required to find the answers from beyond what just the passage tells you. So although you're required to know although you're required to source your answers from the passage, you need to have additional knowledge of what the passage is telling you about to come to the correct answer. On the contrary, in the English passage-based reference to context-based question, what happens is that you have to get the answer only from the bounds of the passage itself. That means that you cannot extend your knowledge beyond what is provided in the passage. So please keep in mind that while solving legal reasoning passage-based questions in the legal reasoning section, you need to know a little more about the context of the passage and what the passage is talking about. The second type of question is the problem situation based question. In these questions, you are given a legal principle which is followed by a fact situation. You are required to apply the legal principle on the given fact situation to get the correct answer. These kinds of questions form the bulk of questions for legal reasoning before the amendment was made to the CLAT examination pattern. Hence, these types of questions are still very important for all other exams like ALIT and LSAT, which still follow the same pattern as CLAT before 2020. In this type of question, you are required to apply the legal principle directly on the fact situation without exercising your own knowledge of the law which is given. So in this way, it is different from the passage-based question, which requires you to apply your own legal knowledge to a certain extent, because in this case, what happens in the problem situation-based question, only your application of the law is tested and not your knowledge of the law. So please keep it in mind that these 2 types of questions test two different qualities. The passage-based question tests your comprehension skills, whereas the problem situation-based question tests your application skills. Okay? Now moving on to the last kind of question. The last type of questions are the easiest to score because all you need to know is the correct answer. This is the legal GK type question. In this section, you get questions like which amendment did what was the 42nd amendment, and then there will be multiple choices given in which one of the choices will be correct. So this is exactly like a test of your general knowledge and a test of your legal skills. How much do you know about the law which you are going to study? Now moving on to the preparation and what to do and how to prepare for the legal reasoning section of CLAT examination. Preparing for legal reasoning for CLAT is quite easy, however, you have to dedicate some time to it. Unlike other sections like maths and logical reasoning, legal reasoning is not a very difficult section and it does not require you to put in a lot of effort. Additionally, it is a section which is very easy to score in. As long as you have your concepts clear and as long as you're interested in that subject and you know the subject inside out, it was very easy to score in this section. So let's see what you need to do to prepare for legal reasoning. In order to tackle all the three types of legal reasoning question, you need to have two layers of understanding of the subject. Firstly, you need to have a solid understanding of the fundamental laws such as the law of contracts, the law of torts, the criminal law, constitutional law, some basics of property law, etc. Secondly, you need to be in the know-how of all the laws which have come to the limelight and become relevant in the present time. For example, there is the Sedition Law, the Citizenship Amendment Act, the Epidemic Diseases Act, the Farm Bill, etc. All of these laws are laws which have become of relevance in the present scenario because of social events and socio-political events of the country. Okay, so please keep it in mind that you are required to cover also just besides the basics and the core fundamental laws that such as contracts and criminal law, you're also required to be in the know-how of all other laws which have become of relevance. Okay. Therefore, because you are required to have two layers of understanding, your preparation too needs to be two-pronged. Firstly, you need to cover the legal current affairs. To cover your legal current affairs and to know what all laws are relevant in present time, you need to read legal newspapers and legal articles. For this purpose, you can rely on blogs such as Bar and Bench and Live Law, as these are as websites which are dedicated solely to legal news and legal current affairs. Okay. Secondly, you need to get a conceptual clarity on the basic laws. So, in order to get conceptual clarity on basic laws, you can rely on the Catapult modules which are provided. Further, you can read online articles and CLAT preparation documents which are available on Catapult website along with other websites of other coaching centers. Okay. So, in addition to this background preparation in which you know what all you have to study and what all you need to read, it is very important for you to practice legal reasoning based questions. And while practicing, keep it in mind that you have to practice from various sources. Practicing from just one source will not be enough. So you are required to do mocks, you are required to do worksheets which are specifically created to deal with a particular topic. And you have to do it from multiple sources. Okay, so while relying on the mocks and worksheets provided by Catapult, do refer to other material available online so that you have a holistic preparation and holistic understanding of the questions which are relevant. Okay. Additionally, lastly, which is my last tip for preparing for legal reasoning, it is very important, and not just for legal reasoning. This goes for all the subjects in CLAT. Always go back and analyze all the mocks which you have done, analyze all the worksheets which you have done. So it is very important that after completing your worksheet and your mocks, you go back and look at the answer key. You see where you are wrong and you see where you are right. Okay, and you keep it in mind. And you keep in mind the logic behind each question and the reason as to why the correct answer is correct and the reason behind the same. Okay. So proper analysis is very important because it helps you understand where you are faltering. Additionally, it ensures that you do not repeat the same mistake. With this, we conclude.
So we look at
I have concluded my introduction to legal reasoning. Best of luck for CLAT.
So in inference-based questions, you are asked to make logical deductions from the passage. So these are indirect questions. You need to imply information from the passage. You need to essentially read between the lines. Now the inference drawn must be supported by the information provided in the passage. So these are basically logical conclusions from the text of the passage. Alright, so inference-based questions are usually worded in a couple of different ways. So the moment you see questions worded like this, you should be able to identify that these are inference-based questions. So first is, which of the following is the author most likely to agree with? Which of the following can be deduced from the passage? Which among the following has been implied in the passage? What is the author trying to imply by saying that? And a line from the passage would be quoted. What do you infer from the line? And a particular line would be quoted. Which of the following is suggested by the information of the passage? So from the you'll have a couple of options following this, and you would have to select the most appropriate option. Alright, so the best way to approach inference-based questions is to read after you have a thorough understanding of the passage. When you read the question, you have to rephrase the question and be able to identify that you have to draw inference. After that, you should start eliminating options. Rather than trying to read the passage and note down the number of inferences is not a good thing to do, because that will waste a lot of time. Rather, you should start eliminating choices. Alright, so there are a couple of ways to eliminate options, which would make them more likely to be incorrect. So first is, the option must not restate or rephrase information from the passage without adding anything to it, which means that if something is just a restatement or rephrasing information from the passage, it is not essentially an inference, right? An inference would bring in some new information on the basis of what is already there in the passage, right? The next is to strike out options that contradict information from the passage. So if the option is contradicting what is given in the passage, immediately strike it out. Third, options that use extreme language such as never or all are not likely to be correct. Usually the information provided on which your inference-based questions are asked are nuanced statements. So those options which have extreme words like never, all are not likely to be the correct answers. Alright. Eliminate options that are unsupported or irrelevant to the passage. So I told you that inference is some new information that has support or that is based on the information already provided in the passage. If you don't see it being supported, or you see that it's beyond the scope of the passage, then just eliminate it. Alright. You may have some background knowledge or some outside information about the passage or what the passage is dealing with. Do not allow yourself to be influenced by it. Just make sure that the inference can be based from the information already provided in the passage. So be careful to not deviate from the passage. Alright. Now let's look at a few illustrations. Illustration 1. Anyone who loves movies is likely to love Cinema Paradiso. And there is one scene where the projectionist finds that he can reflect the movie out of the window in his booth and out across the town square so that the images can float on a wall, there in the night above the heads of the people. I saw a similar thing happen one night in Venice in 1972 when they showed Chaplin's City Lights in the Piazza San Marco to more than 10,000 people. And it was then I realized the same thing the movie argues. Yes, it is tragic that the big screen has been replaced by the little one. But the real shame is that the big screens did not grow even bigger, grow so vast that they were finally on the same scale as the movies they were reflecting. Alright, let's look at the question. Which of the following can be inferred from the passage? Option A. Cinema Paradiso is a film about a projectionist. Option B. The author has been to Venice. Option C. Cinema Paradiso is a great film. Option D. The size of theatre screens has increased to reflect the scale of the films. Alright, so the answer is option B, but let's understand how to arrive at it. So we will, as I explained earlier, the better way to solve such questions is to start eliminating options. So let's start doing that. So if you look at the options, you can immediately see that option C is talking about the greatness of the film, right? Cinema Paradiso is a great film, but no such thing about the film being great or not has been mentioned in the passage. So this is unsupported information, right? It's an inference that has not been supported by the information from the passage. So we can strike off option C. That leaves us with A, B, and D. Now let's look at option D. The size of theatre screens has increased to reflect the scale of the films. However, the last line of the passage tells us the exact opposite thing. It tells us that the screen has not expanded to match the scale of the films, right? So it's contradicting the passage. So we can strike this one off as well. Now we are left with option A and option B. Alright, if you look at option A, you might want to refer to the first line of the passage. Yeah, it does talk about there being a scene which has a projectionist in it. However, that is not enough to imply whether the film was solely about a projectionist, right? So be careful to not lose sight of these small things. So which makes this option also to be incorrect. So option A is incorrect as well. Now we are only left with option B, which is our answer. That the author has been to Venice. Now we'll just refer back to the paragraph, to the passage once again to cross check. So if you read the second line, I saw a similar thing happen one night in Venice in 1972. From this, we can immediately understand that this is possible only if the author had been in Venice at that point. So we can infer that the author has visited Venice or been in Venice at least once, right? Therefore, option B is the correct is what we can infer from the passage. It's the most appropriate answer. All right, this was a simple one. Let's look at the next illustration. A Overton window refers to the range of ideas considered to be acceptable in public discourse and hence likely to be adopted as policy. It is also known as the window of discourse. Politicians in any democracy generally do not propose ideas that fall far beyond the range of the Overton window, as those ideas could be considered extreme and unacceptable to the voting public. Such public pressure can also discourage scholars from pursuing ideas that are considered too radical, thus perpetuating existing ideas on various policy issues. The idea is named after American public policy expert Joseph P. Overton. Alright, which of the following can be inferred from the passage? Option A. All politicians choose their ideas in accordance with the corresponding reaction of the people. In this, the first option uses an extreme word, which is all. The passage tells us that politicians tend to do it. Politicians do it. However, we cannot make a generalized assumptions that each and every politician abides by the range that the Overton window covers, right? Therefore, option A can be struck off as it uses extreme language. So the answer is not likely to be correct. Now let's look at the next option. Overton window got its name from the public policy expert Joseph Overton. Now this is something that is outrightly stated in the passage, right? The last sentence of the passage. It is not telling us anything new. It is not deriving anything or deducing anything from the passage. It's just a restatement of information given in the passage, which means that it is not an inference. So option B is also incorrect. Alright, option C. A gradual shift has been observed in the Overton window over the past decade in the Indian political discourse. Option C is also incorrect since it is bringing in outside information into the passage. What this option is talking about is beyond the scope of the passage. Therefore, this option is wrong as well. So this is what I had been talking about earlier, that do not let background information that you may have about the subject of the subject matter of the passage influence you. So watch out for these things. option C is incorrect. And nothing about India has been spoken of at all in the passage, right? So the moment you see something like this, you should strike that option off. Now let's look at the last option. The reaction of the public holds significance for a politician while deciding which ideas to pursue in the public sphere. Now we already know that option D has to be the correct one since the other three have been eliminated. However, let's look at what the passage says about this inference. So if you read the second line, it talks about how if something is likely to be considered unacceptable by the voting public, politicians don't tend to pursue those ideas in the public sphere, right? This would only happen if politicians accorded that much importance to the opinion of the voting public. Only because the public is finding it unacceptable is the politician deciding not to pursue those ideas in their political discourse, right? So this is why we can infer that the reaction of the public, the opinion of the public has great importance, has significance for a politician when he's deciding which ideas he wants to pursue in the public sphere. So this is the correct inference, option D. That's what this also reads. Option A can be eliminated since it makes an absolutist statement about all politicians. Option B is incorrect as it is not an inference but a restatement of the information of the passage. Option C can be eliminated since it goes beyond the scope of the text of the passage and the logical conclusions that may be drawn from it. So option D is the answer. Alright, with that we come to the end of the video. Good luck.